Hello, everyone. Welcome to End Your Year Strong interviews, where we give you an opportunity to have a sneak peek into the hearts and minds of our guest presenters. And if you haven't registered yet, I want to know what rock you're living under. I want you to go now to endyouryearstrong.com and register right now. Make sure you bring a friend with you. We are so thrilled to have Miss Valorie Burton. And she's a renowned life strategist, international speaker, one of our panelists for End Your Year Strong this year, our 2023 event, which is being hosted in Atlanta, Georgia. And she is the CEO of Coaching and Positive Psychology. I love the acronyms CAP Institute, and she has made a significant impact on personal development in the coaching world. She has inspired millions around the world, in fact, on all 6 continents and over, I don't even know how many countries. She has inspired them, not only with her material, and I consumed her material last night for a whole 3 hours, and it's so inspiring, as well as her YouTube channel, her inspirational books. She has appeared on so many major platforms, and it's with a delight that we welcome her, not only to End Your Year Strong, but to have an opportunity to talk with her in person. Welcome.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be with you. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Thanks so much. Today, I want to just do a deep dive into your mind, into your heart, to extrapolate your insight as well as your experiences. But before we get started, I always like to just do what I call my icebreaker, where it's more lighthearted so that people can connect with you and get to know who the Valorie Burton is, the woman is. So can you share with us some fun and interesting facts about yourself that most people may not know?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm a military brat. My dad was in the Air Force. So I grew up in a lot of different places. So when people start trying to pinpoint me, where are you from? They get confused because I was born in Florida. I lived in Germany as a kid. I grew up mostly in Denver. I lived in California, Texas, outside of DC in Maryland, before moving to Atlanta. And every summer I spent in South Carolina, where my parents are from. So I'm from all over. I think that kind of helped shape me a bit, moving a lot. I think it helped with the resilience, with just connecting with lots of different types of people and always being interested in other just cultures. And, the thing, I like to celebrate the things that make us different. Other little interesting facts. As a result of moving a lot, I grew up with a keen interest in foreign languages, learning German and Spanish, even though I haven't had the chance to speak those for a long time. That was a real passion for me. I started out my career at in public relations, so I wasn't always doing writing, but I was always entrepreneurial. So I had my own PR firm in my 20s. Other fun facts, gosh, I'm terrible at sports that involve a ball.
Listen, the hand-eye coordination, that's me.
I was a gymnast. I ran track. I was a cheerleader. Do not try to throw a ball to me. I mean, it's a 50-50 as to whether I'm gonna be able to catch it.
Yeah. This is really interesting because that explains your neutral accent. It's very neutral.
It's Colorado.
Okay.
And so I've been told, I studied journalism in grad school the first time, and my closest high school friend went into journalism, and she said that Colorado accent it's just a middle American accent that is kind of what they like if you're like delivering the news, to not be able to tell where it's from. So I think it's the Colorado part.
Yeah.
But put me around my family in South Carolina and Atlanta for not very long, and you'll hear my Southern roots.
Yes, absolutely. But I can't hear it yet.
And when I go home to Denver, they tell me I sound Southern, but I don't get that.
No, I don't even get it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So listen, favorite book of all time?
Oh my gosh, all time. I love books so much. That's hard to answer. And then we're gonna finish and I'm gonna be like, Valorie, you know what your favorite book is.
Okay, so give me favorite author or top
So
top three.
I would say, starting with my 20s, some things that changed my life. In the area of money, there was a book called The Courage to Be Rich by Susie Orman that really challenged me a lot. I read a lot of Bishop T.D. Jakes's books early on that challenged me. Probably Woman Thou Art Loose was the first one in my spiritual journey that just drew me closer to God. And then, I went back to grad school to study positive psychology. And there's a book called Learned Optimism by Dr. Martin Seligman that was really instrumental and part of the reason I applied to the University of Pennsylvania. It was just, for me, really helped me understand kind of a research-based foundation for the coaching that I was doing, and how can we change our thoughts in order to change what we're actually doing. And the fact that some of us just naturally think in a particular direction, sometimes that direction is not helpful, and we can be intentional about learning how to change it. And it really lined up with my faith. It was kind of the very practical, how you take thoughts captive. So there's a blend in everything that I do that comes from, my faith, but then also my interest in research.
That's so amazing. We have a similar background. Mine is in psychotherapy as well. Our backgrounds are similar. In fact, I had a private practice.
Wow.
For a while in South Florida, and utilizing, all of our background, I think it explodes, and we're able to look back at our journeys to see how it's impacting us today and what we bring to the table. You're a recognized thought leader, not just a motivational speaker, not just a coach, but you're a thought leader. And if you went to dinner with a historical figure whose thought you admired, who would that be and why?
Ooh. I know so many people would say this. But I am, every time I read the letters and the works of Dr. King, I'm inspired. I think for me, I share his birthday. So as a child, my parents always made a big deal of that. So I started very early, probably around 8, studying what he did. That sense of purpose of, there are some people born to change our world in ways that we may never fully understand what their impact is. I really believe he was one of those people. But he was very bold, a truth teller. He was able to do it in a way that the broadest number of people could hear it. And that's something I'm always interested in, how we communicate, how you help people let their guard down so that they can see uncomfortable truths and maybe acknowledge that change is necessary, rather than seeing it as something I need to keep defending and running from. Maybe I need to be convicted and do something different. That fascinated me about him, continues to fascinate me, and I think serves as a point of inspiration for me.
It's said that we are attracted to people because we have something similar in our own lives. And you use the term, and I wrote it down, born to change the world. And you're an agent of change. And how do you see what you're doing similar to Martin Luther King? Not that I'm calling you Martin Luther King, because we all have our unique contributions. And there's one of the things that I always say, that a better me is a better we, a better I is a better us.
Yes.
And how do you think you are influencing change?
Well, I truly believe that each of us was born with a mission that God has for us. Mm-hmm. And we have unique experiences, some of them positive, many of them not, mm-hmm. that create a drive and a passion in us around a topic, an issue. And it answers a question: how are people's lives better because you are here, because they cross paths with you? The mission, I prayed for it. When I was in PR, I didn't feel like it was my mission. I felt like it used my gift, communication, mm-hmm. and my passion for entrepreneurship, but it wasn't my calling. Mm-hmm. And when I discovered my calling and realized it was around specifically inspiring women to live more fulfilling lives, that I would do it through writing and speaking, everything else started to make sense. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, some of that is my passion of doing something that I was, good at, not passionate about, how hard that is, just getting up in the morning, just saying, why am I here? Because we all want to know that, because purpose fuels perseverance. If you don't have a why behind what you're doing, when the challenges and obstacles come, it's very hard to stick with it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I also believe that, we need to be focused on what our unique impact is. So my hope is that I'm inspiring that. And then through the CAP Institute, what I discovered is that's an extension, that's more legacy and influence, that people who have a similar purpose and calling, who want to be able to work, whether it's one-on-one or in groups or just around that field of inspiration, I can pour into them so that they can then go out in the world and inspire in their unique way. Mm-hmm. So that's how I see the influence. I really think there's more for me going forward to influence in additional ways, because we're dealing with some unique challenges on our societal level. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that coaching has a place in that. I think we're stuck in many ways as a country, probably as a world, but I'll just stick right now with right here, mm-hmm. With dealing with truth, dealing with the realities of what it looks like in our very diverse world to be able to be here together and move forward. Mm-hmm. I think we're more divided than I've ever seen in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. So I anticipate going forward that there are some things I feel called towards, that still positive psychology and coaching are there, but impact not just on an individual level, but on a bigger stage for us as a culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have a passion that's burning like a fire on the inside of me, and your statements feels for me like oil that is being poured, because I share the same kind of sentiments, and it takes courage. It takes courage to move beyond what the average person calls success. Yeah. So you're successful at what you're doing, and you're saying, yet there's still more. And those of you that are listening and you have a sense that there's got to be something more, there is something more. And Valorie, along with myself and Keisha and Mickey Taylor and Real Talk Kim, especially for those of you that are women, we are carving out a special time during End Your Year Strong to talk to you, to equip you, to give you tools, to even help you to be inspired with our own stories. to garner that courage to be able to say, look, there's got to be something more. And this brings me to another question that I think a lot of people ponder, especially women.
Mm-hmm.
Can we have it all?
Maybe. I think it's hard to have it all at the same time, but we have to first define what it is.
Yes.
I think the problem is we let other people define it, and then we're going after it. And it's like, okay, is that your unique path? Are you supposed to have all of that?
Yeah.
What is it for you? But it all at one time, honestly, it's not that desirable. It's overwhelming. So, deciding what is it for me,
mm-hmm.
and what's the timeline for it. And then there's seasons for things. And if you're not willing to move out of one season and into another one because you're still holding on to things that you think define success, you're going to be overwhelmed, frustrated. You're going to be stuck in upward social comparisons of what other women are doing that you're using as your measure for what you should be doing. And that's a losing battle.
Yeah, and it's hard having the courage to define it, what it is. For my mother raising 7 children and as a single parent, it was putting food on the table, and she was the most selfless individual. She gave of herself to her children, everything that she had, but she became a serial entrepreneur. It for her was caring for and raising 7 successful kids. I'm number 6 of 7.
Wow.
So, defining what it is, I always say, yeah, you can have it all if you define what it is for you, without comparing what it is with other people. And, this was supposed to be something that was light, and it's going into something that is deep. And I think it is because we're connecting at the level of the reality of women. We're both women, and we could talk to women because we've had similar journeys. Maybe in some instances we're ahead of many women, and in some instances we may be behind. But who is that one woman, historically, biblically, even contemporarily, that you would say, if I could spend one day living as this individual, this would be the individual, without comparing?
Ooh, living as. Oh, you asked some tough questions.
Without comparing, these are all philosophical.
So the one that pops up fastest, who knows? If I had an hour to think about it, I might come up with another, but I read years ago The Life and Times of Madam C.J. Walker.
Yes.
Probably read about 20 years ago. And as an entrepreneur, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit since I was a child. The reason I would say to live one day is, one, the creativity, the tenacity, the coming from nothing, a washerwoman in the late 1800s. Like, I think I would come out of it. You plop me back into 2023, and the perspective I would have on what I think is hard, what I think is resilience.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
your big word.
I think I would be so much stronger. My capacity would grow so much, because when we look at what women have come through in years past, especially when we go back that far, and the vision they had to have, and the tenacity and the fortitude, and working with so little, I think one, we realize how much abundance we live in right now. I don't care if you think you have nothing, you have so much.
Mm.
I think it would make me more creative. I think it would make me realize, anything that I'm still trying to determine how to move forward. And then I think it might also give me a greater sense of urgency on some of the additional things I feel called towards. Yeah, and I think I'd be surprised at some of the other things I would come back with. But I've long admired her, and to think, the first self-made woman millionaire, not African American woman, the first self-made woman millionaire in the U.S. From where she came from is just mind-blowing. So yeah, I would. And then she looked like she was having fun. She when she got to that point where she really was successful, it just seemed like she was enjoying her success. I think sometimes as women, we don't give ourselves permission to enjoy our success. There can be guilt that comes with it. There can be all of these, kind of parameters we put on ourselves, and we hold ourselves back. To me, yes, we are to be generous. That's at the core of my mission. But I believe we're also to enjoy that
Mm-hmm.
abundance. And that there's not anything wrong with that as long as we're in balance with it. So yeah, I think that would be fascinating.
I think, the wisdom that I'm extrapolating from you, if I can use it as a soundbite, is don't try to be the best, be the only.
Ooh. Because nobody else can be you.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody. And you can't be anyone else. So why bother trying? It's a waste of energy. There's a reason you are here and a reason you are still here. There are people who were here this time last year and they're
Yes,
not. Whatever their mission, it's been fulfilled. Yours is still ongoing. Don't
yes,
you want to know what else is there for you to accomplish, to do, to experience, and then get about the business of doing it? This is not a dress rehearsal.
I love that. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is the real deal. Um, just another interesting question. If you had a superpower, what would that superpower be?
Oh, a
And how would you use it?
Mm. I'm sad for the amount of suffering in the world, and I'm trying to figure out what would be the superpower to be able to alleviate some of that suffering. I don't know what it is. There's just so much of it. I often ponder the circumstances that I'm born into. I had nothing to do with. And it's not like I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I mean, my dad was an airman. My mom stayed home with me the first few years. We lived on the Air Force Base. In fact, I think when they came home with me, it was a trailer on the beach outside of the base while we were waiting for base housing, but if you were born here or any number of countries where you are generally safe, you have clean water, you have opportunity for your dreams. If you want to go to school to become something, you can. The opportunities are there. If you want to start a business, you can. I mean, that's amazing, but there are billions of people around the world who didn't have the blessing of being born into those circumstances. I don't know what superpower is. I just wish there was something I could do for all that potential that's stifled because people simply didn't have the level of favor that you and I have. So maybe that's the superpower of sprinkling some favor.
Yes. That sounds really, really great. And maybe changing the circumstances that people are born into.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a superpower where you can help people maximize their potential.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you've said a lot, and being able to extrapolate that you're an individual that really wants to help people to maximize their potential, to say to them, hey, you have potential, you can change your circumstances, but you could change your destiny, and here's the tools that you can use to change your destiny. I think that's remarkable.
Because, you know, the things that we're talking about, even if I go back to the research of positive psychology, and if you look at the studies around the happiest countries in the world,
you
know, there's some interesting studies even that Gallup has done where you, instead of you know, looking at gross domestic product to determine how successful a country is, you look at like gross happiness products, right? At what people say about their well-being. And if you look at that, what you see is the countries in the bottom half just don't have the basic freedoms, right? And so it doesn't matter how much you learn certain tools. You're not even worried about those tools because you're trying to cover the basic the basic things of living, right? And I think it can be easy for those of us who aren't worried about those things to forget. And I think it's painful sometimes to look at. And so it's easier to kind of ignore. And so when I talk about that superpowers, like, yeah, you can maximize your potential if you've already got some basic things. You're not worried about, you know, you're not worried about a stable, you know, environment or things like that. So yeah, I know that doesn't sound fun. I wish I came up with something.
Well, it is fun. I grew up in abject poverty. Abject. We ran out of everything: water, food, everything. We ran out of everything. And there was only that, you know, my mother's streams of income, and that didn't stretch. We had more month than money. I think what the difference maker for me was the fact that my mother was a reader, and books for me gave me a vision of what was possible.
Yes.
I remember reading The Night Runners of Bengal. This was about India's revolution. I was young reading books like that. And I can't remember where I got the book because we didn't have enough money to join the library, but I do know I was a lover of books. And I said, one day I'm going to go to India. It gave me options. So I think to be able to put pictures in front of people's mind, a sustained image, if a person has a sustained image in front of them, it brings about a sustained paradigm. And a sustained paradigm brings about a sustained emotion. And a sustained emotion brings about a sustained feeling, and a sustained feeling, a sustained habit, and a sustained habit, a sustained lifestyle. So to break someone's lifestyle, you have to go all the way back up to the imagery. This is why, you know, even with going into communities and helping people to see that life does not have to be this way, no matter where you're born or the circumstances that you're born in, you have to change the imagery. And I think if I could change anything in the world, I would change what we pay educators. I would make the profession of education the highest paid.
Yes.
And the highest paid profession in the land. I would fight for that because you're producing a workforce, and the capacity within your workforce determines the prosperity of your nation, basically.
Yeah.
If you want to progress, if you want to prosper, it's all going to be in the collective capacity of your workforce. So, you know, and the greatest challenge, I think, in the 21st century is not going to be a challenge where we're trying to find people's job, find individuals' jobs. The issue is not going to be joblessness. The issue is going to be employability.
Yeah.
There's going to be more jobs than people are afraid of AI, algorithms, technology, but they're only going to create more jobs. And the jobs are going to be different from pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, everything is different. And, I'm thinking you've had this remarkable journey in the world of personal development and coaching, and we've talked about you doing more, so you haven't maximized your potential. But looking back in your life, can you share a pivotal moment or an experience that inspired you to pursue this path that you're on? And where do you see yourself, say, 10 years from now? Where do you see yourself doing, producing, writing?
So the pivotal moment for me was when I discovered my purpose after praying a couple of years. It was 1999, and I remember the moment because I was standing in a bookstore on Saturday, July 10th. And I just heard in my spirit, Holy Spirit, tell me the purpose that I just gave you around inspiring women. Everything changed at that point because I knew it was God speaking to me. It wasn't audible. It just was, I knew, and it made sense. It suddenly was like, of course, that's everything I'm passionate about. And that a way that I can uniquely impact people with my gifts that come naturally. I was excited. In the next 10 years, most importantly, the way I arrange my work so that my primary roles as a wife and a mother, I am able to fulfill in the ways that I believe I am called to. My son is 9, so he'll be 18, 9 years. We're halfway through, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't want any regrets. I feel I have done, I've laid a foundation. When I was younger, I was, I had a mom that instilled in me a love of reading. She taught me to read at a very young age and write. And so books were my friends. Unlike you, my mom had 6 siblings, but I had none. I was an only child until 3 weeks before I graduated from college. My brother and I are 20 years apart. Wow. So books were so very important and pivotal to me. And so I was always ahead. I finished college at 20, grad school at 21, started a business at 24, wrote my first book at 26. Like that was my identity, largely doing things fast. And I would have thought, you do everything, all the goals you have, you'll be reaching those by 40, 50, you're all done, Valerie, you're retiring. I got to that point where I was like the 20-year point with my writing and stuff. And I distinctly sense, now you've laid a foundation. There is so much more that you can now do because of the foundation. I never would have thought that 25 years ago. For some reason, I thought you got to fit it all in, then you're done, and then you just go do whatever you want to do. And it's like, yeah, you can still do all of those things. But, I think I hit 50 this year. It's like, we're not here forever.
Yeah.
So what are you doing that lasts? I'm not saying what I have done hasn't, but what does that look like going forward? And no, it's not all done.
Yeah. You're just starting.
So much more. There's decades to come.
Yeah. You're just starting. Absolutely.
Yeah. So 10 years from now, I want to see that my husband and I, as we are empty nesters, are, feel strongly that we've done everything that we were meant to do as parents. I have 2 bonus daughters. The oldest one just started college this semester. that our marriage is strong, that I had everything I wanted to pour in as a parent. I did it. And things I needed to stop doing because that season was over, I stopped and made room. And I can say, well done on that. And that fear didn't get in the way. And when I say that, I mean, just being completely transparent. You know, when you build something, and it's always been about getting to those certain opportunities, the idea of changing seasons or pulling back in certain areas can feel scary. What if I miss this opportunity? What if people don't, you know, what if I stop something and then people just forget I exist? But all of that is fear. Because if you get clarity about what you're meant to do, what's meant for you is always for you. And so
you're talking about something that's so interesting. And that is where a lot of women are who are, say, over 65 and over. And they're technically retirement age. I've had lots and lots of conversation with women that are over 65, and that fear has gripped their hearts. What do I do? Where do I go? Who's going to take care of me? These are individuals that are still married, or they're widows, or, you know, they retired, or they were pushed out of their spot. What do you say to those women, how to get unstuck and move on with their lives?
I would say, first of all, if that desire is still in your heart for something, it's there for a reason. And your age is not relevant to that reason. Sometimes I think we put limitations on ourselves. It might not be based on what you think. It's what other people or society has said about what we're supposed to do at certain ages or as women. And so you've got to get clarity about what you are meant to do and own that. I think, one, we have to call out fear when we feel it, not to beat ourselves up. You know, when I think about scripture, and I think about all of the scriptures around fear, it doesn't say that we are not to feel fear. If you're human, you feel fear. In the face of it, though, it does say you are to be strong and courageous. It does say you are not to have a spirit of fear, meaning you're not operating in fear. But when you see fear, you should immediately call it out. That's fear. What does that do? It allows you to pause. Don't own it as though fear is you. Fear is something that appears. It's not always bad, because sometimes fear is sending you a message like, that person's not safe, right? But you have to distinguish between that fear that is wisdom and that fear that is saying, yeah, this is out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, irrational fear.
You're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Well, you ought to be uncomfortable. You're out of your comfort zone. You're stretching. Be courageous. That is your charge. So when you realize maybe what I'm experiencing here is a growth gap, and this is an opportunity for me to practice courage, to maybe be different than what I've seen behind me. Also, maybe you're modeling this for your daughter, your grandchildren, other women around you. So just because you haven't seen others do it doesn't mean it's not what you are meant to do. Maybe the part of the purpose is actually being that person that is inspiration for others. That you're 65, 70, 75, and oh my goodness, no, life's not over. You actually have something to build on. And what does that say to me at 50? I find a lot of inspiration in women who are older than I am. And when I see them living fully, I'm like, oh, yes, I have something to look forward to. And wouldn't that be a revolution as women?
Oh my God. That would be amazing. That'll be amazing. You know, I could talk to you all day. I feel like we're having a cup of coffee together.
I feel that way too.
And I'm looking forward to unpacking some really heavy issues with you in our the women's section, where we are going to be talking to women about women. We have some very interesting panelists, Nikki Taylor,
Yes.
and Keisha Green, a couple of others, Real Talk Kim, yourself,
Yeah.
me. We're just going to be hanging out together and really empowering the women for their necks and helping them to become unstoppable. Last words. Why should the viewers sign up for End Your Year Strong? Why should they be there? And what are you bringing to the table without telling them?
Listen, if your words just in our conversation have not convinced them that there are things that they need to be thinking about and being intentional about, I don't know what will. So what I would say is, listen, in order to create any change in your life, you must be intentional. And what does that mean? Partially, it means reflect on where you've been. You get to the end of a year, what's happened? What's gone well? What are you most proud of? What have you learned? And then setting the vision for where you are going. That's huge. And so being able to do that before you enter that year in an environment of other people who understand the importance of being intentional, of pausing, of investing in yourself, to me, there isn't anything that replaces that. There's an energy that comes with it, a motivation and inspiration. So that's why to sign up. My contribution, a big part of what I want to share is around the power of vision and being bold enough to have one that excites and it inspires you and pulls you forward. That's like when I go into the new year, that's what I'm saying. What is that vision for you? I've got a bit of a process that I think is a little different around your vision, having a manifesto for that as you move into this new year. So I'm excited to share. But what I want and what I pray for everyone who attends and who's listening right now is that you get clarity about where you are supposed to be going from here, what the obstacles are, and how you're going to push through those. That's it. And this is an opportunity for you to do that.
That is a mic drop right there. I'm so excited to partner with you to empower, to inspire, to motivate, to equip, to tool women from around the world for their next. I think, we talk about the power of our feminine energy, but I do believe that we're going to see some history makers and some women who are born to change the world. And that I wrote that down. I circled it. I have a piece of paper right here. Going to change the world. And if that is you, I'm going to meet you December 14th to 16th right in Atlanta, Georgia. Hot Atlanta. It's going to be cool, but Atlanta. And thank you once again for saying yes. Yes to your life. Yes to your call. And yes to our invitation.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I cannot wait.
Thank you. So bye for now. Thank you guys for joining, and God bless. Make it a great day.